Before accusing Heisenberg of his actions during the war as being pro-Nazi, we must consider several factors to his actions. Heisenberg, of course, was not the only person involved in the war, and his actions were not the only ones to be considered. He was neither a keen supporter or did he strongly oppose the regime. He fell somewhere in the middle, a category that many Germans fell into at this point during the war. Also, like many Germans, Heisenberg was a nationalist. He loved his country, and like many others, he did not want to betray his country, even if it meant working for the Nazi regime. He was simply doing what most Germans did during the war. We certainly would not wish to hold every German soldier accountable for his actions during the war. However, and by the same token, Heisenberg can hardly be blamed for continuing his work during the war. Of course, he had numerous offers from other countries for professorships at universities, and he turned all of them down. This was initially due to his belief that the Nazi regime would not last very long, and therefore their reign would be short-lived, making it not worth his while to leave the country. Another controversial claim was that scientists involved in the atomic bomb program deliberately misled the army about the possibility of an atomic bomb. A lot of people disbelieve this simply because they believe, how can you keep such information from military officials? Until this day, nobody knows what was said, but Heisenberg still remains that he kept this information from them. Because he worked enthusiastically on this program, he is associated with the Nazis, even though that he claims he was building a reactor to help his country in the war. Heisenberg's infamous foreign lectures is another important event. It was reported by the Nazi administration itself that he was not originally a perfect choice of candidate for these lectures, since he could not be considered a suitable cultural representative for the regime. The administration reported that he did not demonstrate his support for the regime, and they perceived him to have rejected anti-Semitism. However, Heisenberg was still given this opportunity because they believed to leave the country and give these lectures because they believed his physics would represent Germany well as a whole. Finally, we tried to look at Heisenberg's character. A great insight into Heisenberg's characters and beliefs during wartime can be gained from the manuscript that he wrote during the months around his 40th birthday in 1941. His goal with this undertaking seems to have been to make sense of his contribution to the world and to create a consistent philosophy by which to live. The conclusion he reached was that individuals cannot make a significant difference to the world at large, but they can and should strive to make a difference to the people who surround them in their day-to-day lives. This appears to be a rationalism of his decision not to make a stand against the Nazis, and throughout the war, examples of both sides of this philosophy can be seen in Heisenberg's actions. Thank you very much.
Heisenberg claimed I don't know how to put expression to this, that he deliberately withheld atomic bombs from Hitler. If this was true, then why did he try so hard to construct a nuclear reactor? He knew full well this was the intermediate stage to producing a bomb. Huh? Which one? Okay. If this was true, then why, when funding looked scarce, did he give a lecture before a group that included Nazi government officials, in which he promised explosives of quite unimaginable force? If this was true, then why do we possess transcripts of his conversations in Farm Hall that demonstrate the construction of this story? We all know that life in Germany during the war was hard, and standing up to the regime more so, as this would often result in the disappearance of the dissenter. However, Heisenberg's situation was different. In many instances, he had a choice. He could have left Germany. He was offered a professorship in America at the start of the war, but he chose to stay, and even prepared to fight for the Nazis. He could have refused to work on a bomb project, as did Max von Rau, who was unambiguous in his opposition and dislike of them. Instead, he both willingly and enthusiastically participated, producing his first report on the feasibility of uranium fission in just 3 months. His defence has argued that Heisenberg is just completely apolitical. This is no excuse. Scientists have a moral obligation to reflect upon the ethics of their work. They cannot extract themselves from all responsibility by saying that they were just doing as they were told. During World War II, Heisenberg potentially held the lives of millions in his hands. Despite his claims to the contrary, there is no evidence that the morals of constructing a bomb of this power were important to him. It is true that when Heisenberg first agreed to work on the German uranium bomb project, the Holocaust had not yet begun. However, the Nazis had already been in power for 6 years, and it was clear he would be working for a brutal, racist regime. He had witnessed the persecution of the Jews escalate, and even he himself had no danger after being labelled a white Jew. It has been a matter of some debate just how aware the German population was of the genocide that was taking place. Nevertheless, it was obvious that all the German Jews had disappeared. Putting 2 and 2 together could hardly have been that difficult. His colleague, von Weizsäcker, has argued that what was important was intent and not action. I would like to conclude with the contrary. Heisenberg's actions during the war were completely reprehensible, and while there was much to indicate that he was not a Nazi, there is no evidence that he deliberately withheld weapons from Hitler. All we have is excuses that were constructed post-war to alleviate his feelings of guilt.
No, you do your little bit and then we'll come on.
I don't know, I should just say thanks.
I think we should have both.
It's all right. Defence lawyer and prosecuting side, thank you. And thank you